The bartender didn't look at me when he said it. He just slid the whiskey across the polished wood and whispered, "You ever wonder where your money really goes?" The music thumped behind him. Bass like a heartbeat, synthetic, empty. I watched the ice crack in my glass. I already knew. I'd been watching for years. My wife's laughter floated from the VIP balcony above, too bright, too loose. The kind of laugh she hadn't given me in a long time. Below her, my friends' wives leaned against strangers in tailored suits, fingers tracing cufflinks, promises forming in dim light. The bartender finally met my eyes. They don't even try to hide it anymore. I didn't react, didn't blink. Because the truth is, I wasn't surprised. I had been watching them get screwed over for years. Watching myself get screwed over. The club was hers, officially, a business venture, something to keep her busy. Something I funded with blind devotion and signed checks. Upstairs, she threw her head back again. A man's hand rested at the small of her back. Not subtle. Never subtle. But that wasn't the part that hurt. The part that hurt was how comfortable she looked. How practiced. How this wasn't new. The bartender wiped the counter slowly. "You didn't hear it from me," he murmured. I nodded once. I had already heard enough. And I had already begun. It started as small inconsistencies. Deposits that didn't align with the club's revenue reports. High-roller cash-outs logged, under private. Events that never appeared on the booking calendar. Casino chips, thousands of them. Cycled through accounts that somehow always balanced by the end of the week. She thought I didn't notice. That I was too distracted. Too trusting. Too stupid. But numbers don't lie. People do. I began noticing the pattern. My friends would joke about supporting the club. They'd show up with their wives, leave separately, laugh too loudly when I asked casual questions. I played along. I even smiled. My wife would kiss my cheek before leaving for inventory meetings. Her lipstick always slightly smudged when she came home. "I'm building something for us," she once told me. For us. That word started to taste like metal in my mouth. The bartender filled in the rest. Private rooms booked after hours. Cash exchanged in chips to avoid traceable transfers. Wives who treated loyalty like an outdated subscription. They weren't just cheating. They were financing it with my money. Our shared accounts funded renovations, promotions, exclusive memberships. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I controlled the back-end ledger. Every chip purchased, every payout processed, every discrete transaction. They thought they were clever. They were careless. I didn't confront her. Didn't raise my voice. I started collecting instead. I created a shadow account, a mirror ledger. Every suspicious chip exchange was flagged, redirected through layered transactions that appeared legitimate, but siphoned off percentages into an account under a corporate shell only I could access. Tiny amounts at first, unnoticeable, then larger. They were too distracted to see the bleed. I hired a forensic accountant under the pretense of expansion. Scaling the brand, I told her. She smiled proudly. That smile. God, I hated that smile. Phone records were simple. Not because she hid them well, but because she didn't think I'd ever look. Messages deleted, but metadata remains. Patterns remain. Recurring numbers. Late nights. The same suite booked every third Thursday. I visited the club more often. Sat at the bar. Watched. She'd glance at me sometimes. Nervous. Then relax when she saw me nod. Calm, supportive. I even toasted her success during a private party. My friends clapped me on the back. One of them leaned close. "You're lucky, man." She's a powerhouse. Lucky. That word almost made me laugh. Behind the scenes, the money drained steadily. I sold off assets tied to the club's credit lines. Quietly transferred ownership of the property lease to a holding company. Mine. When the club applied for expanded gambling privileges, I approved it. Encouraged it. More chips. More volume. More opportunity. They thought they were bleeding me. In reality, I was letting them dig. The deeper they went, the more irreversible it became. The bartender noticed. "You're different lately," he said one night. "I've always been like this," I replied. He shook his head slightly. No, I hadn't. Not before I understood. The final confirmation came in a sealed envelope. Surveillance footage. Not explicit. Just undeniable. My wife entering a private suite with one of my closest friends. Staying. Laughing. Touching his face the way she used to touch mine. I watched it once. Then again. No anger, just clarity. That same night, I asked her to sit with me at the kitchen table. She looked wary. "What's wrong?" she asked. I slid the envelope across. She hesitated, opened it, her face drained. "This isn't—" I raised a hand gently. "Don't." Silence thickened between us. "It's not what you think," she whispered. I studied her like a stranger. I know exactly what it is. Tears formed. Too late. Too practiced. "You've misunderstood the finances," she tried, desperate to pivot. I almost admired the instinct. I leaned back. "No," I said calmly. "You have." That was when confusion replaced guilt. And that confusion was the beginning of her real fear. The bank froze the club's operational accounts the next morning. Regulatory audit, triggered by irregular chip liquidity ratios. Perfectly legal. Perfectly timed. The leaseholder, my holding company, issued notice of termination due to breach of contract clauses she had never bothered to read. My friends received similar notices. Personal guarantees called in. Loans accelerated. They thought the club was printing money. They didn't realize most of it had already moved into structures they couldn't touch. She stormed into my office that afternoon. "What did you do?" Her voice cracked. I didn't look up from my paperwork. I corrected the imbalance. "You'll ruin us." I finally met her eyes. "No," I said quietly. "You did." Her phone buzzed relentlessly. Other wives panicking. Accounts locked. Credit cards declining. The illusion collapsed fast. That's the thing about houses built on deceit. They crumble quickly. "I loved you," she said, voice breaking. I stood, walked past her, paused at the door. "I loved who I thought you were." Then I left her standing in the wreckage of her own design. The club closed within a month. Bankruptcy filings followed. My friends stopped calling. Their marriages fractured under financial strain. Funny how loyalty evaporates when luxury does. I liquidated what remained under my ownership. Relocated. Started over. Not poorer. Not richer. Just lighter. Sometimes I think about the way she looked when realization finally settled in. Not that she'd been caught, but that she'd underestimated me. That was the true betrayal. Not the cheating, not the lies, the assumption that I would always play the fool. I sit in a different bar now, quieter, cleaner. No VIP rooms, no hidden ledgers. The bartender here doesn't know my story. That's fine. I don't need witnesses anymore. They thought they were gambling with my trust. They didn't realize I was the house. And the house always wins.